Alright, how's everyone doing today? As you know, we're streaming some Shonen Jump chapters. We got Kagurabachi, we got One Piece, we got Ichi the Witch, Jujutsu Kaisen. There was a new Shinobi manga added today to Shonen Jump. So, ton of exciting stuff. Last week in Kagurabachi, we got hinted at what could be a new big bad. He already seems pretty powerful, could be one of the most powerful characters in the story. So, we're just going to have to find out and see. But, as always, we'll give everyone a few minutes before we get started. Soul, what's going on? How you doing, man? Also, how's everybody else doing in the chat? I just finished reading Ichi the Witch. Now I'm starting Shinobi Undercover. So can someone explain this to me? Is Shinobi Undercover completely brand new? Like, is this its actual debut? Or is it one of those situations where it was already in another magazine and they're moving it to Shonen Jump? Because I feel like I didn't hear about this manga prior to this. Yo. Shade Knight with the hilarious comment. The anti-N10 squad about to teach Chihiro how they fight in South Chicago, jumping him 10-on-1. Look, man. Kagurabachi has always been about the street fights. They don't keep it clean at all. It's always been about the street fight. It's always been about fighting in the middle of the city, downtown, Chihiro having to sacrifice an arm and a leg so that Sojo doesn't kill like 20 civilians. They might as well just call it South Chicago, the manga. But does anyone know, is Shinobi Undercover, is that entirely brand new? Because that's the first I'm hearing about it. I had heard about Ichi the Witch for weeks before it came out, but I feel like I'm hearing about Shinobi Undercover. Shinobi and Witch are boring to me, but Mamushi is peak. Which one is Mamushi? I've definitely heard of that. Yeah, I'm not seeing Momoshi, but that's okay. Shibuya arc in Chicago for a JJK live reaction would be peak. I mean, that would make sense if Shibuya literally wasn't in the name. I mean, it's Shibuya. It's the Shibuya district of Tokyo. But I do hear what you're saying. JJK is like jumping the manga, which is a good thing. The one with Urine the half-bug girl. I'm not seeing that either. No, unless that's another magazine. I'm not seeing that. I think it's brand new. I've never heard of Shinobi until yesterday. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. It's called Insect Girl. Yeah, I'm still not seeing that on the Shonen Jump page. That must either be Now I'm curious. Yeah, no, nothing. Let me see. That looks like it might be Jump Plus, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Anyway. So we'll go ahead and get started. I know there's a lot of big chapters today, but I would like to start with Kagurabachi. So, Kagurabachi ended on a pretty big cliffhanger last week. No, I know it's on Manga Plus, but I don't know what magazine it's in. It might be Jump Plus. Anyway, Kagurabachi ended on a huge cliffhanger last week. We had the new to us member of the Hishaku. As you'll recall, the guards for what's his name, Urara, were fighting the Hishaku. They seem to be like totally wiping them out. And then we cut to the end of the chapter, and they were absolutely murdered and laid out on the bench at the train stop. And this new long-haired villain seems to be pretty badass. So right now it's looking like Chihiro versus this new villain. Anyway, so this is chapter 49, Deadlock. So we're on the train. It's this Hishaku member and like 3 bad guys, it looks like. Chihiro points out, this guy wasn't there when they killed my father. Interesting. So he could be new. The rest seem like hired hands. Yeah, they looked like kind of just fodder. What are you trying to do? To kill Uraha and negate his eternal contract. I feel like that's pretty obvious. Oh, you mean that? I figured he'd want to say a proper goodbye. They were actually pretty tough. They even beat the Datenseki armored troops. That's something to be proud of. Chihiro, kind of sweating a bit, getting intense. He says, and this guy slaughtered the guys who defeated the Datenseki troops. In other words, he's a total beast. So Uraha totally snaps, breaks out the sword, cuts one dude right in half, cuts his arm right off. So it's interesting. They were worried about Uraha flipping out. But Chihiro's the one kind of stressing out here. So Uraha cuts this guy wide open, and he looks at Chihiro and like with like a stone cold reaction just goes, "Focus, we have a job to do." So Chihiro snaps out of it a bit and he says, "My job is to protect Mr. Uraha." And you have to remember there's 2 things going on here. One, this Hishaku character has already proven to be incredibly strong. So Chihiro is worried if he's strong enough to beat him. And number 2, as we've seen in the past, Chihiro gets pretty stressed out just when he has to face one of these Hishaku, just because of his past. And so it's kind of traumatizing for him. So this Hishaku member, interestingly enough, he has a bunch of loose leaf pieces of paper that just look like scrap paper. They don't look special. Blood Crane is the name of this attack, and he somehow like magically folds them into origami pieces. So then we turn the page, or we're looking, Chihiro is about to attack these guys. We turn the page. They're cut in two. And these origami pieces cut right through the hired hands. It blinds Chihiro, and then the Sashaku member uses the distraction to try and land a sword attack on him. So this guy is pretty unorthodox, to say the least. Somebody said, just read Kagurabachi and Astro Royale. The contrast between cops helping or hindering you in the two was fun. Yeah, I'm a few chapters behind Astro Royale. I'm going to have to catch up on that. I'm only a few chapters behind, though. I'm glad to see people reading Astro Royale, though. I was kind of worried that it had sort of fallen into the abyss of irrelevance. I love Astro Royale so far. So Chihiro is attacking. It seems like he cut the Hishaku member's sword in half, but the origami, some of them were shaped in shuriken and they landed on Uraha. He tells Akuri to use the centipede attack that his father had used. So he grabs Uraha's hair. Interesting. Get a gorgeous spread on pages 10 and 11. That's really cool. So we get a funny moment where Hakuri pulled him back, and after the attack he blows out all the windows on the train, and Chihiro says, "Mr. Uraha," and Uraha's he's still on his back, but he does a peace sign. He's like, "I'm good." That's funny. I'm really liking Uraha. He's a chill character, but he's still a badass, but he's still really goofy. Funny enough, Uraha says about the Sashaku character, he calls him the kid with the long hair. So presumably this Hishaku member is a younger character, maybe just a few years older than Chihiro. This guy has the skill and speed to come after my life while defending himself against an enchanted blade. It's a struggle for Chihiro to protect me and deal with him. Shade Knight says, you got it wrong. Can I explain? What did I get wrong? Oh, I'm assuming you're talking about my Big 3 video. By all means, go for it. Anyway, so Uraha is kind of analyzing the situation here. He's thinking about all his friends, the guards that were protecting him. He's thinking about Chihiro's father. And then he tells Chihiro that he's got this, right? He's trying to encourage him. So Chihiro, clocks this dude and knocks him out of the train, right out the window. And Chihiro tries to be rational and says it's not ideal, but having this guy around is much riskier. So he says, in other words, they're not the issue here. The issue is they weakened the Kamunabi guards enough so that their elite fighters could finish them off. The Kamunabi side has 2 fighters with enchanted blade level fighting prowess. The Hishaku side has more than that, but they're short-lived. And on both sides, there are skilled fighters without enchanted blades. Our fighting power is split evenly. Something about that seems not totally accurate, but that's okay. Blazing Boy, what's all going on? How you doing today? Also, Justin, pleasure to have you. If I didn't say hi to you earlier, what's going on? When he says centipede, it was to remind him of the horizontal circular attack he did. So he and Uraha get to the ground as Chihiro himself does a large attack in the train. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I didn't remember his father doing a centipede attack. I just was going off by the panel. But thank you for clarifying that. So we continue. Let's see. So he's saying that the fighting power between the Kaminabi and the Hishaku is even, but I'm kind of doubtful of that. Our key strategy is that soon Hakuri's storehouse power will recover. If Hakuri can make contact with the sword bearers, he can transport the enchanted blades. Hakuri and Mr. Uraha are headed toward the Senkutsuji, fortress. They'll meet up with another owner of an enchanted blade there. If Hakuri is in contact with two of the enchanted blades owners and his powers recover, very soon, those two enchanted blades will break the deadlock. So they just met one sword bearer and they're about to meet another, and they're already talking about their strategy to secure them. It feels like this is going to be a much faster arc than I had anticipated. My expectation was that, it was going to be a 40 plus chapter arc where they take their time finding all the sword bearers, kind of like in, say, a One Piece arc. They take their time meeting all the members of the Samurai 7 or the 8 monsters of blah, blah, blah. But it seems like they're going to speed run that part. So now that you don't have a person to protect, you can really go all out. So, interestingly, the Hishaku member uses one of his origami to pick up the Daten Sheki piece. The Hishaku says, "We call them our counter Enten special force. Chihiro Rokuhira. This means we can kill you." So Chihiro says that deadlock is about to be broken. So this is a good moment for Chihiro, because this is chapter 49. For 49 chapters, he's been pretty afraid of the Hishaku. He's been pissed at them. He's hated them. He's wanted revenge on them. But whenever he would come face to face with them, he would sort of lose his cool, right? He would become kind of a hot mess. But in this chapter, we've seen him have this arc of going from very stressed out, clearly very anxious, to sort of gaining his cool back and gaining his resolve in this fight. So as much as this was a chapter to see a new side to Uraha and learn a little more about this Hishaku villain, this was very much a chapter about Chihiro, which Chihiro, for better or worse, kind of carries Kagurabachi. So all in all, I would say this was a good chapter. Pythagoras, how you doing today? Just came here right now. Yeah, so we just finished up reading the new Kagurabachi chapter. Can I explain what I meant in the title? Well, it seems as though there's a new Hishaku member, and he's fighting Chihiro in this chapter. Unfortunately, we just finished reading the chapter, but I would encourage you to read it yourself. I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. Jamie Cardona with a very generous super chat. Thank you so much for the donation. Huge help. Jamie said, "Just a fan of your work." Well, I appreciate that, man. Or girl. I can't tell by your profile. I'm sorry. But thank you so much. Really a huge help. I appreciate that. Haven't read it yet? That's okay. You gotta check it out, though. Blondie about to fold Chihiro using origami. Yeah, I'm curious to see. Well, because he's got the origami, and then he's got this, as he calls it, the counter N10 special force. So it's Chihiro is playing it down like they're truly fodder and nothing else. But if you're just going by pure numbers, right now it's looking like 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 1. So even if you rationalized it in Chihiro's logic, that's like 2.5 on 1. But even then, this is an enemy who presumably knows all about Chihiro's abilities, and Chihiro knows nothing about his abilities. So, as it stands right now, the odds are against Chihiro, even if only slightly. Ichi had a good chapter? Okay, good. I'm glad. I am excited to read Ichi the Witch. We're not going to read it next. We will read One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen first, and then we will read Ichi the Witch. But I wanted to start with Kagurabachi. Can you recommend some non-mainstream shonen? Something that is not popular? Because I've read mostly all of those. I would read, if you're not reading it, what the hell? I would read Shangri-La Frontier. Now, it is technically mainstream because it's pretty popular at this point, and it does already have an anime adaptation, but it's definitely not as popular as a lot of other manga. Plus, if you love video games like me, you'll love that manga. Yes, and as Blazing Boy said, definitely read Akane Banashi. It's already one of my all-time favorite manga. Blazing Boy said, am I only going to read One Piece, Kagurabachi, and Ichi? We're going to read those 3, and we're going to read Jujutsu Kaisen. Ooh, Soul with a good recommendation, too. He said, read Radiant. Radiant is a manga that's been on my list for ages. Pythagoras said, thanks for the recommendation, guys. Yeah, man, this is why we do the stream. I mean, obviously, I have my reviews. I have my recommendations. But, I'm just one person. I can only read so much manga. Obviously, everyone else has read a lot more manga than I have, or read a lot of different manga that I haven't. This is what we're here for. How can a theater manga be your favorite? Because it's just funny, it's got good art, and it's got great characters. Simple. On that note, I am going to start reading Jujutsu Kaisen, because I've been dying to find out what happens ever since the last chapter. As we switch over to Jujutsu Kaisen, I would just like to remind everyone that I am an affiliate of TCG Player. If you're looking for trading cards, if you're looking to get some pre-sale cards for the new Duskmourn set of Magic the Gathering, if you're looking for One Piece cards, One Piece sleeves for your other trading cards, if you're looking for Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, all the trading cards you could possibly think of, make sure to go to tcgplayer.com. You can find the links in the description below for this stream. Go ahead. This is not a sponsored stream. I'm just an affiliate member. But if you're looking for trading cards, I love TCG Player. I'll buy cards on there, and they come fast, and they come in perfectly good condition. And you can get some good prices on there too. So make sure to check out TCG Player using the links in the description down below. Shade Knight said, have I ever lost all interest or respect in an author, swearing to never read a work of his? Loved Soul Eater but hated Fire Force? See, I'm the exact opposite. I feel like I only gained more respect for Okubo with Fire Force. Even though I like Soul Eater slightly better, I love what he did with Fire Force. Shade Knight said I only play Yu-Gi-Oh. Well, I love to hear that because I used to love Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't hate it, but you know, I don't really like how they deal with the sets and how they kind of like they'll come out with a new set and then they make the previous set completely irrelevant. And they kind of reinvent the whole game with every set. What was I gonna say? But yeah, if you want Yu-Gi-Oh cards, make sure to use those links. I just have the 2 links, but those are just for those 2 landing pages. If you go to TCG Player, they have tons of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, even the new ones. Master Duel for an online experience can get you back in it. Yeah, true. Alright, but I've been distracted for a little bit too long. Let's talk about Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 269, Considerations. So, interestingly enough, we don't start with Yuta. We seem to be at some kind of rundown convenience store. There's some kind of sauce that ultra sauce flavor. How much? And it's Mei, you know, everyone's favorite Jujutsu Kaisen character with 0 problems whatsoever. Then it's this really weird character with like an Uncle Ruckus face with like one really big eye, and then he's either missing an eye, or they're either missing an eye, or they're not. So that was an interesting way to open the chapter. But then we go back to our main guys, and we see Maki. Yuta, you jerk. It's not okay just because you're back in your original body. So then the Yuji crew walks in, and Megumi goes, Maki? Oh, Megumi, how are you? My head is kind of spacey. Is that because of Unlimited Void? Megumi blushes, and he says, I want to apologize to everyone. And Maki just goes, do it later. Anyway, you have nothing to apologize for. She's like, listen, I'm worried about other stuff. And then Yuji says, actually, I do. And then, what's his name? The sword user. I can never remember his name. He says, it's Gojo's fault for not killing Itadori way back when. And Itadori is a victim of Kenjaku's Jujutsu terrorism. I was in favor of your execution, Itadori. I'm only here because of Yaga. And I won't say that I was wrong or I told you so either. Each person's truth brought us to this outcome. So you guys know you don't need to feel guilty. Just be kids and let the old guys hang their heads. It's an interesting perspective. Pretty in character, I will say. Okotsu senpai, how did you return to your body? I owe it to Rika. When she didn't follow me into Gojo Sensei's body, I thought I had lost my connection to her. But Rika was using reverse cursed technique to repair and sustain my body, which Iori had worked on. When Kenjaku's cursed technique burnt out due to the domain, I thought I was dead, but there was a minor miscalculation. Kenjaku was still active after the opening of the domain. I suppose it was possible to somehow divide multiple cursed techniques to continue functioning. Probably through barrier techniques. Millenarian, interesting word, and fresh copy won't be equally precise. Excuse me. After recovery of the cursed technique, I was near death, and Rika was an external cursed technique. We reconnected, and I survived. Sorry for making everyone worry. So basically, that was a lot of words to say. When Yuta went into Gojo's body, he kept Rika outside of his new body. Rika maintained his original body, and that's how he was able to go back to his old body. There is, I mean, you can kind of fill in the blanks there as far as like how he went back to his old body. But I mean, it makes enough sense. I'm not too worried about that. So then somebody says, who cares about all that? The issue is that if you had acted properly, we could have won more easily. First, consider the surprise attack on Kenjaku. I should have done that. This is Maki talking. Then there's the plan involving Higurama's sword. Combined with Togei's remote cursed speech, we'd have won easily. We should have had Higurama carry a recording. It is impossible to activate multiple instances of cursed speech simultaneously. Playing cursed speech from a recording counts as one instance, so only one voice recording is possible. Interesting. So then Todo jumps in and he says, but my boogie woogie can't target you, Maki. Even Okotsu pulling off the surprise attack without my assistance was risky. Besides, Rika's strength was necessary for stopping cursed spirit manipulation from raging out of control. And then Panda says, and Togei's cursed speech had reduced recoil because of the timing. If we'd used it when Sukuna was in better condition, the kickback would have been fatal. Sukuna was playing around. He could have killed me any time. If Okotsu... So, Higurama isn't dead. I thought he was dead. Am I crazy? Am I mixing something up? I could have sworn he was dead. Can somebody correct me if I'm wrong? Was Higurama not dead? Or, you know, presented to be dead? Let's continue, though. So Higurama is saying he could have killed me whenever he wanted. Besides, cursed speech is easy to counter, right? I'm the one who decided we should have used it inside of Okotsu's domain barrier without any external opponents. After all, harmful acts are impossible inside my domain. Nonetheless, it's amazing that someone who became a sorcerer 2 months ago survived. But you might say that's unfortunate. So Yuji is looking at Higurama, feeling kind of bad for him because he's kind of self-loathing right now. But then Maki says, still, those foreigner helpers, if they'd been there at the start, things would have been different. And then every one of the main characters is like, yeah, that's right. Which kind of makes sense, right? I mean, I remember thinking that at the beginning. I remember when those characters showed up, I was like, so why are they showing up so late? So everyone's like, yeah, wait a minute. Why didn't they come earlier? So then Yuta has to defend himself. He says, but they said they wouldn't come, and I said they might, but they came. And Yuji's like, easy, guys. Let's settle down here. So then Yuji says, thanks to Okotsu Senpai's cursed tool, I was able to hide my fingers. Confirming for anybody who was still confused at this point that those were in fact gauntlets. Wouldn't gloves have worked? Go to a hardware store. Thanks to Okotsu Senpai, we prevented Sukuna's second domain. I'm saying it could have worked out before that. Then Hikari says, good thing waiting inside Rika was possible. We were able to follow up with an attack immediately after Gojo, and that drew Urame away from Sukuna early. And that's thanks to Okotsu. So then we cut to a panel where I'm not really sure what's going on there. They show all those TVs. I believe that was the room they were all waiting in when they were watching Gojo's fight. Then Todo says, but I'm responsible too. I prepared with Miss May for Sukuna's domain, but I couldn't get a hold of Choso and Itadori. Then what's her name with the piercings? Hikari's girlfriend, seemingly, says, a problem with cursed technique area. No, the problem was less distance than... Let me say that again. No, the problem was less distance than Sukuna's cursed energy. In the center of that domain, Sukuna's cursed energy was too strong, so I failed to lock onto the cursed energy. Then what's his name with the beanie hat, the mask? Can't remember his name. I was there, but Ui got me out fast, so I'm to blame too. We should have been able to save Chozo. Excuse me 1 second. So then we continue. Yuji says, but then I would have died. It's no one's fault. So then Maki comes back and she says, I'm not trying to blame Yuta either. After all, Black Flash hit me twice. But this guy, she goes, never mind, screw it. And she gives him a cute little punch. And then Panda and what's his name, Sushi guy, are having a cute little laugh. Like, oh, they're such a cute couple. So then the GOAT of Jujutsu Kaisen, the strongest character in Jujutsu Kaisen, Miwa, says, I was scared stiff. I was on standby as Maki's marker and for domain countering. What if Todo-senpai's cursed technique had only saved me? You're the one who said you wouldn't join combat, and I didn't. Anyway, you'd have objected. And we have, what's her name, the witch girl. I am really bad with these characters' names. Sorry I didn't do much. Well, your broom was a comfy ride. I wanted to take on Sukuna after finishing off Urame. Urame was tough. And then we cut to, oh my god. Of course, now I'm just going to blank on every character's name in the final chapters. I was asleep for a long time. Nobara. I was asleep for a long time, so I can't say much. Then Oi says, we may have our own regrets, but surely everyone agrees I was the MVP. That's a fact, if we're being real. Oi, how many chapters after this? So today's the 15th, so there's 2 more chapters, I believe. Because I'm pretty sure the last chapter is the 28th or the 29th, and today's the 15th. So if you don't include today's chapter, there's 2 more chapters. But that's kind of facts if we think about it. Oi was kind of the MVP of this whole fight because he was the one teleporting in and out and, you know, saving everybody so that they could get healed. So, I mean, if you think about it, yes, you had characters like Yuji. Yes, you had characters like Hikari. But let's be real. Oi is arguably the MVP. But then Kirara says, you panicked and left me. And he says, yeah, well, you're heavy. And then, of course, Hikari has to hold her back when he says that. So then Mei says, guilty is charged. After all, I can't exchange my life for money, and you can't bet with what you can't exchange for money. Hikari says, new shadow style. Can't only certain people use that? Yes, that's right. A binding vow restricts it to one family. The inventor, Sadatsuna Ashiya, made it that way to prevent it from leaking to curse users. But generations changed, and new shadow style lost its public benefit, and simple domain became a trade secret. Of course, Nobara and Yuji are totally lost in this conversation. They're like, whatever. In other words, the clan keeps a monopoly on it, invites disciples, and unreasonably enforces the binding vow. New shadow style is of great worth to sorcerers who have no cursed techniques. Todo learned it from Tsukumo, who acquired it Mekamaru style? I'm not really sure what they mean by that. So on the next page, they're kind of just talking about the nature of new shadow style and the binding vow. Only the leader can undo the various binding vows. As far as I know, there aren't any senior disciples who have information on the head. Maybe you mean there weren't any. I'm the current head of new shadow style. Interesting. All right. So the simple domain binding vow and lifespan spell are no longer a problem. In time, Ui Ui will become the leader and rake in monthly fees from the disciples. So, okay, so this seems to have something to do with the beginning of the chapter, because now we cut back to the old lady from the beginning of the chapter. She says, how much? Mei says, I'm talking about your life. How did you find me? And how did you know I'm the leader? I heard from someone in the know. But no one should know that. You intended to increase the number of disciples to stand alongside the big three families and then control Jujutsu headquarters in the sorcery world, didn't you? So then the old lady says, Tengen. It would take a long time, but absorbing lifespan from disciples must have been a means for living to someday see something. You can't exchange such ambition for money, and now the Zenin clan has fallen to ruin. So if the Kamo and Gojo clans both fall in the final battle... Anyway, what's more important than money can't be protected without money. If there wasn't exclusive control of simple domain, some sorcerers wouldn't have had to die. You were trying to make my little brother defective, so this was bound to happen, and she murders this old lady. So, I gotta go back. What's unreasonable about a binding vow, forbidding the teaching of a new shadow style to anyone but disciples? That's only part of it. You can't refuse summons to action from the head, among other complications. What's particularly tricky is lifespan. Because this is closer to a spell without limit than a binding vow or curse technique, new shadow style's head absorbs the lifespan of the disciples, supposedly. So... seemingly this was the head of new shadow style, and they were using the binding vow to draw the life from people. It would take a long time, but absorbing lifespan from disciples must have been a means for living to someday see something. If the clans had fallen in the final battle, what's more important than money can't be protected without money. If there wasn't exclusive control of simple domain, some sorcerers wouldn't have had to die. I might just be out of the loop, but I feel like this is very over my head and very awkwardly timed, considering we only have 2 chapters left. I feel like the whole chapter was just like dedicated to explaining stuff and like defending the tactics of the final battle. I don't know. It's a weird chapter for me. I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. You know, it's not a bad chapter, but like I feel like this is a weird thing to do. As like your third to last chapter. It feels very weird to me. I'm interested in Gege's next title if he drops any. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I hope he does another manga. Just reading the chat real quick. Pythagoras said JJK ending is the same as 13th chairman election arc. Too much info dumping in a short period of time. The difference there is that whole arc was, that was an arc of its own. That wasn't, the end of Hunter x Hunter, right? And that was a very political arc. This is not like a political time in the story. They are kind of doing politics with the whole head of the simple domain or head of the new shadow style thing, but like it feels very left field. Like it feels awkwardly timed. Like half the chapter is, okay, here's all the potential questions or criticisms of what we did in the final fight, and we're going to talk about that for like 10 pages. And then the other 10 pages are like a super weirdly random explanation of new shadow style and like the lore of that I'm just like, why are we doing this? Like, to be fair, I do not get super deep into the power scaling of Jujutsu Kaisen. I do pay attention to it. I do, keep it in my mind, like my lingering thoughts. But I'm not like deeply analyzing the mechanics of JJK's power system and the different families and the techniques. So to that respect, this does go over my head a bit. But I feel like even people who are wicked into the power scaling and all that stuff, even for people like that, they must read this chapter and be like, really, this is what we're doing in the third to last chapter? Like, I feel like the next two chapters have to be like not slice of life chapters, but they have to be like true blue, like textbook epilogue chapters. If they're not time skip, that's fine, but they gotta be like, here's what happens next. Like, here's the end of it, right? Like, we gotta see the resolution of these character arcs. Because to me, this is crazy that we had a whole chapter dedicated to just like defending the manga, and then the other part of it is like getting really, really niche when there's still a bunch of other questions. I don't know. It feels weird. That's all I can say about it. It feels very weird. But again, the manga's not over. I can't really say for sure what kind of impact a chapter like this would have. We still got at least 2 more chapters left. But yeah, Pythagoras, I'm just going to tell you right now, if you recommend another manga like that, or you make another comment like that, you're getting timed out. Not really putting up with that. But back to JJK. This is a weird chapter, and I'm not even skeptic of the next 2 chapters, but I'm very curious to see where Gege goes next, because at this point I have no idea what we're gonna see. Like, I was not expecting this kind of a chapter at all. Let me look at chat before we move on. Justin Garcia said, just glad that my boy Yuta lives. Yeah, I am happy that Yuta survived. I feel like if Yuta had died, it wouldn't really have been worth it to have him die off. Just looking at the chat again. Someone in the chat said, for me, power creep gets annoying when it creates cognitive dissonance where you question how characters get so powerful compared to the start of the series. I do think Jujutsu Kaisen does a perfectly good job of scaling characters. Like, there isn't really a character that I'm like, dude, where did that come from? Like, that was undeserved. But I will say, there are those few examples like this chapter where Gege goes a little too in depth with some of the power scaling and the minutia of the lore. Like, this felt like a very meticulous chapter. Overly meticulous. So Justin wants to know, will I do a stream like I did with My Hero when JJK ends and discuss the ending? I really enjoyed your stream with Townsy. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I had a ton of fun doing that stream. And it was good to get Townsy on it because more so than me, it felt like he got a lot out of that stream as far as like his lingering thoughts with the manga. But I won't make any promises, but I am going to try and put something together. I'll put it this way. If I do a stream like that, I would like it to be the biggest stream on the channel thus far. But fingers crossed on that one. We'll see. In fact, that was actually a very helpful question because that reminded me to, well, let's just say to reach out to somebody. Somebody said, upon hearing too many Anitubers talking good things about Kagurabachi, I decided to read it. I gave it about 40 chapters and dropped it. It's genuinely so predictable and mid, not peak fiction. I mean, I can't really tell you otherwise. You know, if that's your impression of it, that's your impression of it. I will say it's not really reinventing the wheel, but it does all the small things right. I love the characters. I love the action. It's got great paneling, in my opinion, and the action scenes are awesome. It's got good characters. It's funny. It's got a simple yet unique art style. So maybe it's not already like a 10 out of 10, but I love it so far, considering it's only 49 chapters. On that note, let's get into One Piece, because I am excited to read One Piece. I'm hoping, granted, I did not look at spoilers. I did not read scans. I have no idea what the chapter is. But I am curious to see if we're getting another transition type chapter, like where we see what's going on in the world, or if we're finally getting to Elbaf. On that note, let's go ahead and read One Piece 1126, Settling the Score. Interesting title. And of course, we get the new edition of Yamato's Pilgrimage, Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage, Volume 14. The girls from the soba shop in Kuri have gone missing. Interesting. The soba shop in Kuri. Huh. So it sounds like Yamato is going to go on a bit of a quest. Curious to see how that pans out. Okay, so it looks like we are going to go to Elbaf because we open with the giant pirates and Luffy. Thank God. What are the names of the two giants from Enies Lobby? Does anyone remember their names? I'm going to have to look that up. Oimo and wasn't it Koimo? Oh wait, I just had it. Crap. Oimo and Kashi. Okay. It's been a hot minute. Excuse me, 1 second. Yeah, Oimo and Kashi. Thank you, Blazing Boy. Neil said the only Jump titles I'm keeping up weekly with are One Piece and Kaiju number 8. Yeah, I can feel that. If you're more into just battle series, Jump is in kind of a weird spot right now. I would recommend Kagurabachi. I would highly recommend Astro Royale. I'm really loving Astro Royale. Excuse me. All right. So let's go ahead and read the One Piece chapter. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to clear my throat there. All right. So we cut to the giant pirates. We got Oimo and Kashi. After we parted ways with you folks at Water 7, we wanted to catch a glimpse of the captains, so we headed for Little Garden. You did, huh? Makes sense you'd be curious. It had been 100 years, right? And when we showed up, wouldn't you know it, but they were beating on each other with their bare fists. Do you think either of these tough old goats is going to be done in by simple punches? And the only way to finish a proper duel is death. In the end, they had to put a stop to it, and we made our way back to Elbaf together. To get new weapons. To get new weapons? You're going to keep fighting? Of course. Come on, Nami. Did you learn nothing at Little Garden? God, I love Usopp. Sanji says to one of the giants, this stuff's strong, talking about the beer they're drinking. It's called absinthe. Oh, that is not beer at all. For anyone in the chat, absinthe is a clear liquor. It's not quite like vodka. It's more of a liqueur. You usually mix it with clear liquors like gin or vodka for like martinis. It's almost like vermouth in a way, but not really. But it's definitely got a strong taste to it for sure. That I'm surprised that a bunch of Vikings are drinking absinthe. This spirit is known as the Green Fairy. So yeah, he called it a spirit, so it's like a liqueur. It can make you hallucinate, so watch out. Interesting. That feels like it's very out of left field. Well, they're Vikings, which is, like the Normandy area, sort of, Denmark. And I believe absinthe is French. I think French people mostly use it. I'll have to look that one up because I did not expect a bunch of Vikings to be drinking absinthe of all things. I would have expected, like, mead. So they're all having a party. Luffy's eating a big bunch of meat as usual. Robin's eating a big piece of bread or something. The girl, Vegapunk, whose name is escaping me right now, is having fun too. Brooke's playing his guitar. They're all singing and dancing. Frankie's doing his posing. Zoro's having a good time. Wait a minute. I am very confused. So, Bonnie is with Kuma? And Kuma isn't dead? I'm so confused. Did Kuma not get killed? Am I just like the worst One Piece reader ever? Did we not see Kuma die? I'm not saying this because it's been long, but I'm pretty sure they killed Kuma. So am I crazy here or what? So anyway, they're at sea. 1 month earlier, at the island of Gartel in the New World, an incident occurred. In the territory of red-haired Shanks, Emperor of the Sea, the pirate known as Bartolomeo the Man-Eater burned the flag of the red-haired pirates and delivered a blow to their honor. If I allow you to get away with this, then all the other islands and pirates to whom I've given this flag will lose the faith they've put into it, and my friends will be subject to danger. This is Shanks talking to Bartolomeo. And he says, yeah, you're right about that. I'm sorry for what I've done. I wasn't thinking about none of that when I did this. It was a stupid, ignorant thing I did. So they're telling Bartolomeo, here's this bottle of poison. Because of what you did, you need to go make Luffy drink this poison. So Bartolomeo, because he loves Luffy so much, takes the poison and drinks the whole thing. He says, I'm okay with that. Mr. Luffy didn't give us no permission for the ritual cups we drank from and the flag we use. This doesn't have anything to do with him. Please don't tell him I did this. I don't want him to waste a single precious second of his time on the likes of me. This is just one of those things that happens. A common thug stands up to an emperor and gets slaughtered for it. Nothing more, nothing less. So Shanks is awfully quiet in this moment. And Bartolomeo says, I sure wish I could have seen Mr. Luffy be the king of the pirates, though. I screwed up bad. Damn it all. You gotta carry on after I'm gone. So he burps, and then nothing happens. He says they let us go. So if that wasn't poison, then he wasn't trying to kill Mr. Luffy after all, was he? I thought an Emperor of the Sea would be more bloodthirsty. Guess he's a bigger softy than I realized. So Ben Beckman says, what's that smirk for? And Shanks replies that he's just happy to see that they care for Luffy so much. But then Yasop says, step aside, every action has a price to be paid. And he shoots Bartolomeo's ship in the middle of the ocean. Status unknown. I feel like that was a big dick move. And I don't mean big dick move. I mean like that was a dick move of massive proportions. Bartolomeo is truly a madman. I mean, He's an iconic character, for sure. I like him. Sorry about that for a second, but we're back. So it cuts from Bartolomeo to Blackbeard. Blackbeard is calling up Pizarro saying, how did he let Kobe get away? Saying that Kobe is somehow the key to getting the One Piece, presumably. And then they all tell Blackbeard, we're ready to go at a moment's notice. We know you're the guy who's gonna get the One Piece and conquer the world for us. And also Pizarro reveals that Moria got away as well. So Moria's alive. Kobe got away. Blackbeard says morale sky high. You let Kobe get away, but we caught Garp instead. Interesting. Though to be honest, I thought I killed him, but he ended up alive instead. So they have, what's her name? Of course, now I can't forget. Or now I can't remember. Pudding. So he's got Pudding. He's got Garp. He said he needs Kobe. Meanwhile, it seems like the revolutionaries are attacking food supplies that are supposed to go up to the celestial dragons. Interesting. Um, so we got all those interesting reveals about the Blackbeard pirates. Then we cut back to Luffy's crew. 2 days have passed since leaving Egghead, and even the giant pirate ship, the Great Eric, has yet to reach Elbaf. They say, how could this have happened? We drank ourselves into a stupor and woke up to find the Sunny is gone. We can't find it. Has yet to reach Elbaf for a very particular reason. We gotta get the ship. We can't go back to Elbaf without it. Robin says, I wonder if it got chomped to bits by a fish. And they're all saying, where did Luffy go? So then it cuts to black, and it says, Nami, hey, wake up. Nami is waking up. She says, I think I have a hangover. She's dressed in some kind of Viking costume, or some kind of raider costume, fantasy costume, what have you. And she wakes up, and she's in some kind of Lego castle, or Lego room. And on that note, that's the chapter. So interesting chapter there. A lot of stuff about the world at large. But more than that, we got a cliffhanger for hopefully what is the beginning of Elbaf. I would give that chapter like a 8 out of 10. The biggest thing for me is that Garp is captured. So Garp is out of commission. And another thing we have to keep in mind is that Blackbeard now has Pudding. So the Navy's going to want to attack him to get Garp. And we don't know what's going on with Big Mom. The Big Mom pirates. Because will they want to attack Blackbeard to get Pudding back? We don't know. Where is Nami at, though? That's the thing. It would appear as though she's in enemy territory. But we don't see Luffy. We just see someone saying, hey, Nami, wake up. So we don't know what happened there. If we go back... Yeah, if we go back, there isn't any hints. Because they're all hanging out on the main ship, the giant pirate ship. So there's no hint as to who would be on it. But if we look, Brooke is with... So we see Brooke, Frankie, Robin, Jinbei. Brooke, Jinbei, Robin, Frankie. So that's 4. So presumably Chopper, Usopp, Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy are all with Nami. So that would make 4 with the giant pirates and 5 in enemy territory. So even. That's my guess. But again, we don't know. Maybe she's just hallucinating? Yeah, but why? I don't know. It's possible. Pardon me 1 second. Pardon me, sorry about that. I know I kept having to step away. So yeah, One Piece. This was a good chapter, but definitely a lot to think about. There was a lot of moving parts in this chapter. What I'm most curious about is is this the start of Elbaf? Is this going to be a lot of is this going to be like a lot of the other arcs where the Straw Hats are sort of forced to breach the island in groups? It seems as though, like Neil pointed out, it's going to be the East Blue crew plus Chopper, and then the newer members on their own with the giant pirates. Seemingly because, you know, if they had just waltzed in with the giant pirates, you know, it would have been like, oh, hey, you know, no problem. But if you have the Straw Hats entering the island first on their own, it's more of a confrontation, and it makes for a more interesting story that way. Again, that's just my prediction in that regard. So we had Blackbeard, we have the Straw Hats, we had the thing with Shanks too, which, I mean, it's One Piece. Yeah, their ship blew up, but I think Bartolomeo's crew is going to be just fine. Obviously, blowing up his ship, it wouldn't kill him, because why would that happen? Why would that be a thing? Other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm also curious to see what happens with Yamato's pilgrimage, but we'll just have to wait and see. On that note, let's go ahead and move to the last manga for today, Ichi the Witch, Chapter 2, Uroro Magic, with a very cool chapter cover, by the way. Another color page, which I love to see. One thing I'm loving about this manga, at least with the color pages, is it's very colorful. It's very saturated, but not overly saturated. It's full of color, full of personality. I love it. I think we are still in the in-between chapters, you know, like before Wano and after Whole Cake. It could be. Again, it all depends on where they are and whether they're at Egghead or not. Or Elbaf. Had a Freudian slip there. Anyway, Ichi the Witch. In this world, magic is alive. Living magic, called magics, are hunted by special women, witches. They defeat magics and acquire their power. Now, the world's greatest, most powerful, most perfect witch is the peerless beauty Duskmourn. She used her massive talent and awesome skills to fight the evil magic Uroro, and nearly destroyed it. But it turns out Uroro is a magic who specifically can't be defeated by women. Mahaha, I cheat, you lose, according to this illustration. Duskmourn had her back to the wall, but right then, some random dumb kid, male, barged in. That random dumb kid, male, somehow managed to defeat Uroro and acquire it, and that is where we are now. So, we get sort of a Bleach callback with Duskmourn doing some Rukia-like drawings here, although apparently with much more skill than Rukia, because these are actually some pretty good drawings. And it's funny because Duskmourn draws Ichi and Uroro like, you know, sketches, messy drawings, but she draws herself like a shoujo manga. Like, she draws herself like a character out of Sailor Moon, which I think is hilarious. And I also think it's funny that she describes herself as the hero and Ichi as the guy who sort of just got in the way. But she says, "Did you get all that, random dumb kid male? I feel I could argue a few of the details, but I understand. However, do you mind explaining the cage?" So, interestingly, she has them all on this giant magic rune, and she has Ichi in a cage. That magic you acquired, Uroro. Turns out it's really dangerous. Its scientific name is the Ultra Amplification Magic. The name it goes by is King Uroro. Witches have spent the last 1,000 years trying and failing to acquire it. The Ultra Amplification Magic is basically what it says on the tin. It's a spell that takes magical effects, any magical effects, and amplifies them to the maximum degree. So I see. So it didn't just copy. So in the last chapter, I was like, was that Descarous's sword ability? And not only did it copy that ability, but it amplifies it. So it takes that ability and uses it on steroids, which is pretty crazy. That's all without practice or training. You just have to pronounce the chant properly. That's it. The result? Look down. I mean, he just used her attack and he basically cleared like a whole path in the forest. Descarous is a true moon scout. I mean, that's what it looks like. Now that magic that had 2 fingers aimed square at the magic world has been acquired by a snot-nosed monkey boy who doesn't know magic from a hole in the ground. Can you see how we have a bit of a problem? Oh well, the one saving grace, downside, is that firing it off just once knocks you out for 3 days. I was asleep for 3 full days? I slapped you silly and then some, but you didn't budge. Interesting. Anyway, now you have 2 choices. Become my servant, companion, or run and try to desperately hide as the whole world comes after you. The whole world? And did I hear you say servant? You have no idea just how unusual you are. You're probably the first male witch ever. Witches and researchers all over the world would love to get their hands on you. Get caught and it's the guinea pig life for you. You'll be experimented on all day. My business is with Uroro, who's stuck inside you now. If possible, I want to keep it close by. Do as I tell you and I'll protect you from the guinea pig life, And then Uroro says, my vote is for running. Don't let her fool you. That witch is trying to steal me from you. Me though, I'll help you. Who cares if the world's out to get us? Let's run, partner. And then as he's sitting on Ichi's shoulder, Ichi pulls out a knife on him. And so I'm confused. It looks like he flicks him off his shoulder. Yeah, he flicks him off his shoulder with his knife. But then he jumps back on his shoulder. But Descarous says, I know what you're up to. You want to turn that kid against the Witches Association so he gets himself killed. Magics are set free once their master dies. He says, cooperating with witches? No way am I going to help him hunt down my kind. Descarous says, we hunt you magics because you tromp around wrecking things. So the 2 characters fight over, who's the good guys and who are the bad guys. So they're all talking. Ichi says, well, wait, are there a lot of magics like this guy? And then Descarous, in clearly a genius moment, says, why, yes, there are. There are all kinds of magics out there, and they're all super powerful. Clearly egging on Ichi. At present, there are 3,185 different confirmed magics. Wow, that's more than Pokemon. That's crazy. They may hide in the heart of volcanoes, in the soundless depths of the ocean. They hide in patient silence. No one's found them yet, but we know they're there. Tracking those magics down, hunting them, acquiring them, that's a witch's job. Or in the glittering heights of the sky, or even a dusty, forgotten corner of someone's study. I saw your house. One look at how you live, and it's obvious. You are a hunter. With what you are now, you can hunt magics. So basically, she's convinced him that if he becomes a witch, he can become a super crazy hunter. Ururo is like, oh God, please don't say yes. And he says, of course, that he'll do it. I'm still not clear on all this witch and magic stuff, but I'll think about it once I've hunted a few. And then Ichi says, you've mentioned a revive spell before. What's the chant for it? Be the reborn Partheon. What of it? So he uses the spell and he gets his magic back. And she says, what do you think you're doing? And he says, gonna try using this magic stuff. Don't even try it. Did every word I just said go in one ear and out the other? He says, before I leave on my journey, it's only right to make amends for what I did. He says, I have done you wrong. Let me make it right. And he says Partheon, the revive spell. And then we get some gorgeous paneling where he jumps through the panels in pages 22 and 23. And then pages 24 and 25, we see what appears to be brand new wildlife and forestation and plants and all that good stuff coming back. And then it cuts to the side of the mountain and a giant patch of forest, which clearly is new because it stands out from the rest of the mountain. And Jessica says, maybe I'll just dump him in the woods somewhere and leave. So I'm really liking Ichi the Witch. I like the dynamic between Ichi and Descaris. Ichi is this very earnest but, you know, sort of unhinged character, and Descaris is this very chill but very bratty character. And then you have the chaotic, unpredictable element of Ururo. So I'm liking this story a lot. I'm excited for more Ichi the Witch chapters. I thought this was another good one. Gon and Killua have a new rival, and also Kurapika. I guess so. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, though. Not really seeing the comparison. Anyway, on that note, this was another great stream. I had a lot of fun. Jujutsu Kaisen was very weird this week. One Piece was good, but as always, ends on a cliffhanger. Kagurabachi was really good. And I'm also excited for the new Ichi the Witch chapter. Curious to see where this story goes next. But on that note, thank you to everyone who showed up today. Thank you to Jamie Cardona for the big donation. Super appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.